Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Episode 542 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. And this is a fun time. I like maybe this time of year about as much as any other because cut down date is coming up a week from today, 4 p.m. Eastern time on August 26th is when each team has to get down to the roster limit of 53 players. The Dolphins made some moves on Tuesday. They're not at 53, though. They're still at 90, including a couple that we already knew about and two that we did not. They also were back at practice at the Baptist Health Training Complex. And there are also some news involving their week one opponents, which was very, very interesting, to say the least. And to talk about all of that and maybe drop a musical reference here or two and some other pop culture thing, maybe. Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel once again. Perk.
And we're off.
There you go.
Right?
Hey, well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Look at that. I pay attention.
Yeah, we're not going to start with the practice today because, as we agreed on from the media contingent of what it was, we decided to call it a glorified walkthrough. There was a couple of competitive periods. It was red zone, goal line, 7-on-7, and then 11-on-11. But most of it was offense working among themselves, defense, go talk among yourselves, that type of thing. So, okay, the news. We'll start with the roster moves. The Dolphins made official the signing of Matthew Judon. They also announced that they had waived punter Ryan Stonehouse after the new special teams coordinator, Craig Ackerman, told us after practice on Tuesday that the Dolphins had decided to go ahead and proceed with Jake Bailey as their punter. The Dolphins also signed a cornerback, Cameron Dantzler Sr., out of Mississippi State, former third-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings, who hasn't played an NFL game since early in 2023 and has bounced around all over the place since then, including the Canadian Football League and the UFL. And then they also waived wide receiver Tariq Black. And overall thoughts on these roster moves, Perk?
It was classy of Craig Ackerman to come out and talk to us and tell us that, especially since, as you pointed out, and as we knew, he had a relationship with Ryan Stonehouse back in Tennessee. So I'm sure that was a tough conversation for him to have, but business is business. Cameron Dantzler, we'll see. My head is still spinning that Xavier Howard got employed. Yeah, exactly. Before Rasul Douglas, before Asante Samuel Jr., and now Cameron Dantzler has a job before Samuel and Rasul. So just kind of very bizarre goings on here. But with Asante, I guess maybe health. That might be a big thing with him. But overall, look, the search for cornerbacks continues. And I'm glad that they haven't given up and said, we're just going to roll with who we have. They continue to search. I would expect that they will make another move after the cuts are made on August 26th, a week from today, as you say. But the cornerback room is inadequate. It's the worst I've seen for the Dolphins in 17 years of coverage. So I'm glad that the search continues. We'll see what they can do. I always give Chris Greer credit for being able to find cornerbacks, and people get on me on social media that you give him so much credit for Kader Kohu and Storm Duck. I'm not putting them in the same category as Madison, Surtain, Ramsey, Xavier. I'm just trying to give the man some credit for something. That's all. So I'm in favor of these moves. Let's see what happens.
Okay. So overall, when you're talking about the cornerback position, you're trying to say that you're more concerned about it than the Dolphins are.
There you go. And by the way, and Matthew Judon, thumbs up. I still don't know exactly why, but thumbs up.
Okay. And yeah, because to me, the thing is, I'm all about, because the notion is like, well, why are you so stupid? Of course you want to add depth everywhere. You want to add good players and depth everywhere. Yeah, except you only have so much cap space to be able to add good players everywhere. And to me, I think there are a lot of spots on the roster where the Dolphins have a bigger need than, let's say, I don't know, edge defender. That's just me. Quick thing about Cameron Dantzler Sr., and I saw his name and I'm like, wait a second. and this is because this is how my brain operates. I remembered the 2020. I didn't remember the exact year, but I remember this guy. Wait a second, he played for Terrell Buckley at Mississippi State, and lo and behold, I looked it up, and indeed, and somebody asked him at that time at the 2020 scouting combine about playing for Terrell Buckley, and unless I'm massively mistaken, that person was that dude right here, because I always do look for Dolphin connections at the combine. This was a combine, of course, where Tua Tagovailoa drew a massive, massive crowd at his podium when he spoke to the media. And there's also the shot, if you've ever seen it. It's funny. I don't know why I'm bringing it up, but it's funny of Omar listening to Tua with like loving eyes like this. It was funny. Anyway, I bring that up for no reason other than it was funny. So anyway, Dan Slurp.
And he still does.
Send comments to @Chris Perk.
Yeah, he does.
Yes, he does. So Cameron Dantzler's got the size, 6'2", 188, started 26 games in his 3 years with the Vikings. Then he was waived before his 4th season. There were some injury issues. Played 2 games with the Saints in 2023, and then again played with the San Antonio Brahmas. I think that's what they're called of the UFL. Played with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL, the Bills, the Saints. Was one of the team that the Washington Commanders, I believe. So he's bounced around. And again, you pick up a guy who hasn't played in the NFL in 2 years on August 19th, temper the expectation. It's one of those, let's take a shot, see what he can do. With the Bailey versus Stonehouse. And I want to paint the scene here because you mentioned it was very classy of him to do this. Today was a day where the 3 coordinators were speaking to the media before practice. Craig Ackerman, the new special teams coordinator, was the first one to go. And, of course, he was asked about the punting competition. And at the time, he was talking about, like, they're both doing a good job. It's neck and neck and all that. And then he came back after practice, which is a very, very unusual move. And it was very classy, as you mentioned, because he said he felt bad towards us for not having answered the question, like, directly, except that he said he wanted to tell the particulars about the news first before it got to the media. And then we asked him all sorts of questions as to the particulars of this. I was not surprised. In fact, in my latest roster projection, which I have to update because of some other roster moves, I had Jake Bailey winning it because he's the incumbent. And the fact that they kept him on the roster after signing Ryan Stonehouse when they could have saved a little bit of money under the cap told you this isn't automatically, we're signing Stonehouse, Jake Bailey, you're done. It's going to be a battle. And like old boxing matches, the incumbent needs to be taken out for him to be replaced. And throughout training camp, from what we could see, not that they did a ton of punting, but they were both kind of the same. And then in the game against the Lions, Jake Bailey had like 2 punts, and it was like 59 yards, no return, 50 yards, no return. Good luck beating that.
Yeah. And, this is one of those things that, just looking at the technical stuff behind the scenes, I think that it's classy of the Dolphins to allow Ackerman to bring Stonehouse in. And I think it's classy of Ackerman to say, all right, Jake Bailey is the guy, that not my guy, but Jake Bailey is the guy. So I think this works well for the Ackerman Dolphins McDaniel relationship. It kind of, it kind of defers to both sides of it. We're going to respect you, you respect me. Life goes on. So I like that aspect of it also.
And apropos of nothing, I've thought about this the last 2 times he's spoken to us. And if you ever see a video of him talking, please tell me Craig Ackerman doesn't look like Phillip Rivers. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, the Matthew Judon move, there's no need to rehash. We discussed it at length on Monday. To me, again, I'm by nature a conspiracy theorist. It's one of my 17,000 flaws, but so I can't help but think maybe there's something else afoot here. Just like, I'm sorry, let's get this out of the way already. Something's up with Darren Waller. Because, again, as we mentioned, the Dolphins did kind of a glorified walkthrough, practically no competitive situations. In fact, Minkah Fitzpatrick, I'm not even sure if he had shoulder pads on. It was kind of a very light practice. And he was short as well. And yet, still no Darren Waller. And he was on the sideline, still looking completely cut, like he was ready to play 100% of the snaps. So, don't want to speculate. You okay there, Park?
Yeah, but I'm all choked up here. I did get to mute the mic when I coughed, but now my eyes are watering. I get choked up when you talk about Judon and Minka and all that kind of stuff.
I thought it was just the sound of my voice. You see, now I'm bummed out. Okay, sorry. So I'm not going to speculate. I'm just saying if, again, something's just not right here. And the notion about getting into football shape,
Yeah.
It's kind of a convenient way of avoiding maybe something that you can't say. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I don't see how you get in football shape without doing football work. And again, I understand that, he might not have had football specific training when he was keeping in shape away from the game. So you need to get those muscles back used to the kind of work you do on the field. But man, how long does it take? I mean, this guy was a high level player. He should be back by now.
Yep, I agree. I guess since we're already on the topic of the practice, and this is where it would be nice if I had my sheet here, my attendance. The quick attendance, the good news in terms of the attendance at practice on Tuesday, Jalen Phillips was back after not working since the joint practice at Chicago. What was it, 10 days ago?
Yep.
Alec Ingold was back for the first time since he sustained that concussion in practice, wearing a red jersey, no contact. Again, there wasn't a whole lot of contact regardless, but still, he had the red jersey on. Mohamed Kamara, who did not make the trip because he got put in the concussion protocol the day the Dolphins were flying to Chicago, also back. But then there was quite the list of players who did not practice. Tyreek Hill again, Devon Achane again, Austin Jackson, Andrew Meyer, another offensive lineman, Addison West, Dante Trader Jr. That's an interesting one because he played 5 snaps against the Lions, which prompted me to ask Mike what happened with him based on that. And if you remember, Trader, the 5th round pick from Maryland, missed some time, just recently got back into action. And Mike said it was pre-planned. That's why he only played 5 snaps. Well, he wasn't out there today. So Ashton Davis not out there. Dequan Jackson, who I believe you saw get dinged up in the Lions game, wasn't out there. Zach Sealer was back at practice, as Mike McDaniel had suggested. And I think that takes care of it in terms of the attendance.
Yeah, I think that's it off the top of my head. Yeah.
Okay, so and as far as the practice itself was concerned, I think all 3 quarterbacks threw a touchdown pass, but again, it was red zone or very short yardage, ball snapped at the 3 or the 5 yard line.
I did give a stock up to the secondary, and it was, because Tua did have like 2 coverage sacks and 7-on-7 with no pass rush, so that was impressive. I did not give a stock down, but I give the secondary, who I just talked about the corners, so let's give them some flowers when we can. It might not be often.
Wow.
I know. Now I'll take a shot at
compliment and a little shot at the end. Nice. Right. And I noted, to me, the last play of practice was a would-be sack by Alex Huntley, who got in on Quinn Ewers, I want to say. Maybe
yeah.
And Aaron Shamklin had 2 touchdowns, one on a quick reception, I think Quinn,
right?
Ewers, correct. And the other one would have been a run on the other side. So, but again, not a whole lot to discuss in terms of the practice itself. Did I mention Tariq Black was a player who was waived?
You did.
Okay.
You did. And Zach overthrew him in the end zone, but I think Tariq had a drop also in maybe on a crossing pattern. I thought, or was it knocked out? Might have been deflected. I thought he had a drop, but anyway, yeah, he
wasn't making the roster. He was one of those. I think he was on the periphery. Even it's very, very difficult to envision any of those young wide receivers: Andrew Armstrong, Theo Weiss Jr., AJ Henning, making the 53, and that's despite the fact that I've praised Theo Weiss Jr. throughout training camp. Had a big game against the Lions, but the reality is he's a big body. Looks to me like he knows how to run routes. He generally catches the ball very well, but not a whole lot of foot speed there. And separation going to be a problem.
Yeah, and you've got the 2 Washingtons, Malik and Taj, plus NWI, Nick Westbrook Akine. So they're Tariq, his big receiver spot was taken by NWI, basically.
And DS Cridge, who, by the way, did have a drop.
Yes, DS Bridges
today.
Yeah.
But you actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I had forgotten about this, that there were several plays in the 7-on-7 where it wasn't just two. I think Zach Wilson one time also was like pump, because the guys are not getting open, and Tua did the same thing. So considering how much we dump on the cornerbacks and all that, props to them for that. And not surprisingly, Anthony Weaver, the defensive coordinator, was asked about the cornerbacks on Tuesday, and not surprisingly, he kind of like praised them for something McDaniel said Monday as well, that they're doing the fundamentals, they're progressing, and all that. Bottom line is it still remains. Go ahead.
Quick question for you on that. Do you prefer the Anthony Weaver method or the Vic Fangio method, where Fangio didn't? What did Fangio say, that we don't have enough safeties, or as he said, very blunt, very candid? I prefer Fangio, quite honestly, without tearing down your players, because Vic never tore down the team. He never said our DBs sucked. He was just very candid in what the team has and what the team lacks. I prefer that approach, but I don't think either is wrong. It depends on the coach and how he wants to come across to his players. But I prefer that Fangio method. No,
correct. And look, we're not looking for coaches to rib their players.
Correct.
That would be fun. We're not necessarily looking for that. But I mean, for example, if you give up 533 yards passing, don't tell me the secondary played well. I mean, that's right. And the balance is in being forthright, and also not throwing anybody under the bus. And the Dolphins' method has always been, like, generally speaking, stay very positive and all that. Because we asked about the running back situation amid Jalen Wright's very, very poor rushing average in the preseason. And Frank Smith basically, I guess you could make the argument he threw the offensive line under the bus, because he kept talking about there's just no blocking. It's tough to make something happen with nothing there. And there are certain runs where Jalen Wright has no shot without question. But there are other runs where, to me, like, maybe there was a little bit more there than he got. And I've said that for a while now, whereas Ollie Gordon is giving you, I think, more than what's there, certainly on a higher level than Jalen Wright. And I asked Frank Smith, based on the result and what we've seen in training camp, is it wrong to suggest that maybe Ollie Gordon could make a push for the number 2 job and a bigger role on offense? And he kind of gave the backhand to the question, kind of, sort of, in a very polite way, I should add.
Yeah, kind of the nothing has been decided yet answer.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And it was the same. I think somebody asked about the backup quarterback position between Zach. That was you, right?
That was me.
Between yours, and we got, again, a very polite thing.
And as Frank Smith was leaving the podium, I said, "So does that mean Zach is the number 2?" And he just kind of shook his head, like, "Damn, Perk, like, damn." But that's good for Frank. He needs to hear blunt questions like that.
No, I know, and it was good that you gave it another shot. And I also should point out, if you folks are not aware of this, and again, thank you for watching this. If you are indeed watching this, I should have said that from the top. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and follow Perk at Sun Sentinel. Sorry, read his stuff at sunsentinel.com. Follow him at Chris Perk on social media. Read Miami Dolphins on SI.com, por favor. Perk is the special teams guru. It was actually funny. And because the last several years, let's say there were 10 questions asked of Danny Crossman, probably 7 or 8 of them came from Perk. Yeah. And today we began, and I see Perk, I'm sitting like 2 seats to his right. And Perk, I see his notebook, and I see about 8 lines of copy there. So Perk asked the first question after a couple of the other media members point out that Perk is a special teams guru. And then Perk asked the first question. I'm like, oh, hell no. It's not going to be on spotlights. I said, Craig, so before we give the floor to Chris over here, then I asked him a question, I think about the Ollie Gordon play.
Oh, yeah. Which was a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, and then wound up, and then it followed that a whole bunch of different people had one question apiece, and Perk, I don't know if you got more than 2.
That was it. So, yeah. And at least Ackerman, when he came back out after practice and talked about the punters, he did say, "Okay, Chris, come on." And so I stepped up to the plate a little bit. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, he made an opening statement saying that they had made their punting decision, and then they opened it up for questions. No, actually, then there was a pause. Then Ann asked, "Okay, any questions?"
Yeah.
And then Craig looked at Perk like, "Oh, Chris," and then Chris delivered. Chris always delivered. So, and I'm sure through the course of the season, Perk will do more than the heavy lifting of questions for the special teams coordinator, especially on certain weeks when there's no really relevant special teams play that occurs.
Yeah.
But actually, I would say this for his first like regular session, very, very nice start, Mr. Ackerman.
Outstanding. Answered our questions pretty much. You know, he didn't seem to dodge anything. So outstanding job by him.
Correct. And no offense, but the previous the special teams coordinator had a habit of saying things like you wouldn't understand, right. Or
there's a lot that goes into that.
There's a lot that goes into that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The news involving, I think that's pretty much all the Dolphins news today. Stay in here though. Don't go because there's other news around the NFL that's very pertinent to the Dolphins. Starting with the Colts, which completely baffled me and it makes zero sense to me. Perk, maybe you disagree. Colts naming Daniel Jones as their starter, and it's not just like a week-to-week thing. He's their guy. To me, it's like, what?
I don't know that they had a better choice, right? Anthony Richardson just is inadequate. Like he is such a feast or famine quarterback that he can make the dramatic throw and mess up the basic throw. And I don't know where that leaves you as an offense. But Daniel Jones isn't much better. You know, that's so I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know who Michael Pittman would prefer or whatever their receivers. They just didn't have a good choice. They're in some trouble at quarterback. Although I mean, I could still see them as like a 7 or 8 win team. Didn't they win 8 last year? What did they win last year? Something
8 or 9, and they were in a range to make the playoffs until they got beat by the Giants in the next to last game of the season. And that
so I see them kind of in the same spot, which for them and their fans is not good. Middling, you know, that mediocre type area is a very frustrating place to be. But that's kind of where I see them. And by the way, I do expect a Dolphins victory. They're 3-0 in openers under Mike McDaniel. So that victory at the Chargers a couple of years ago to open the season is one of the best victories in the McDaniel era, I think.
Oh, without question. Without question.
Yep.
Here's my thing though is because I put this on Twitter is like the difference between the kind of game you can get from Daniel Jones to me goes from bad to meh or solid. Right. And with Anthony Richardson, it can go from cover your eyes horrible to spectacular if he happens to like have a game like this. And the other part of it too is they drafted the guy, was it 4th or 5th overall like 2 years ago? Yeah. And he can't beat out Daniel Jones. That tells me basically that door is slammed. Might as well trade him now because you clearly have given up on him. And
I agree.
Taking it from a Dolphins perspective, because Daniel Jones' ceiling to me is so limited as a quarterback, where to me, like a stat line is going to be, 19 for 22 for 85 yards. I mean, it's going to be check down city. It's great news for the Dolphins to me. I don't.
This Anthony Weaver. Anthony Weaver's got to be thrilled, absolutely thrilled that he's just gonna. He probably doesn't even have to unleash much of the NASCAR pass rush or whatever he's got because. Yeah, you can say the meat package, whatever he wants to do with Benito Jones. You can save a lot of that for week 3 at Buffalo now. You don't have to show a lot of it in week 1 to get that victory.
Yeah, and here's when the Dolphins played the Colts last year, it was Anthony Richardson, who was really bad. He was bad passing, did some damage with his running a little bit. But again, there's always the unknown and the possibility that he can make some ridiculous throws. Whereas with Daniel Jones, there's just not a whole lot that scares you. And apparently from what I'm reading, the Colts have been having injuries like up the wazoo all over the place, which is part of the reason why they had to sign Xavier Howard. Yep. And then you got the Cleveland Browns, who decided to go with Joe Flacco. Now the Dolphins play them week 7. Is Joe Flacco still going to be the starter in week 7? And Joe Flacco is one who is for a lot better than Daniel Jones. I'm going to start with that. But I don't know. Could it be Dylan Gabriel in week 7? Could it be Shedeur Sanders? It won't be Kenny Pickett. That's for sure.
No, and you know what intrigues me more than the quarterbacks they face, Poop, is the what can Anthony Weaver draw up to disrupt these guys? So, okay, Daniel Jones week 1, but week 2 is Drake May, right? Do I have the schedule correct? Is it?
Correct,
Yeah.
sir.
And then you go to Josh Allen. So what can you do against both of those guys? It's I'm really intrigued of and how do you overcome the cornerback situation? What do you do? How do you use Minka's skill and expertise to your huge advantage? You've got to cover for these corners, and you've got a great pass rush, great inside line. Well, I say great, good. You know what I mean? Not great.
Simmer down now. Simmer down.
I know. I should. Good potential on your pass rush. Good potential with these inside backers that, we saw last year. Jordan Brooks led in tackles. Dodson led in interceptions with just 3. But, the pass rushers are going to be healthy, you would think, early in the season for those first 3 games. What can you do to disrupt those quarterbacks to get that defense as a game-changing, game-winning unit? I'm excited, and I really want to see what Weaver draws up.
No, I agree. And Dolphins absolutely, without question, will need their pass rush. I don't know if they're going to need their pass rush against Daniel Jones. That's a different. They'll need to affect to some degree Drake May. Certainly Josh Allen. Week 4 is a whole different. Again, back to me in the same boat as Daniel Jones with Justin Fields.
Yep.
Who can do a lot of damage with his running. If we remember that game in 2022 in Chicago where, we rushed for 185 yards or something.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last bit of news involving, and this was a comment from Sean McDermott in Buffalo. Dolphins are going to see that in week 3. He's talking about it's August 19th, a little less than 3 weeks before the start of the regular season, and talking about we need another safety. We need to find a safety opposite Taylor Rapp.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Which, of course, brings to mind there's a safety out there who's available, free agent, who I think would love to return to the Buffalo Bills. I'm talking, of course, about Jordan Poyer. And I say this with the absolute utmost respect because I have nothing but respect for his career, for his toughness and all that. That would not be the worst news for the Dolphins if the Bills were to decide to go that route.
Correct. Poyer, I don't know if you could say he gave Buffalo that victory last year, but that penalty was huge. I mean, players make mistakes, but boy, for a veteran to make that mistake at that time of the game, that was painful.
Yeah, and it wasn't a cheap shot. If you remember the play,
No.
I mean, he's going for the ball. He missed his hitting point and wound up like sticking his helmet. I don't remember where it was, but so that's certainly something to keep an eye on because again, all of those things impact the Dolphins. I don't know of any major news involving the Patriots other than from what I'm reading, Will Campbell, the 4th overall pick in the 2025 draft, not necessarily looking great in pass protection, looking very good in run blocking. There's a very viral clip of him like at the second level, basically driving a defender to the ground like 10 yards down the field. Outside of that, I can't think of anything that really stands out over there. So I think that's going to wrap it up. Can't really think of anything else. Dolphins will be back at practice on Wednesday before the joint practice on Thursday. And apparently the news out of Jacksonville for those interested in a thing, and I'm certainly very intrigued. It would be nice to see Travis Hunter at that joint practice. If he lines up both wide receiver and cornerback during the practice would be even cooler. Apparently there's a possibility he could practice, which seemed much more unlikely earlier in the week, but to be determined. So, and we will be back to wrap it all up tomorrow afternoon. Again, he is Chris Perkins. Check out his fine work at sunsentinel.com. His Dolphins deep dive with Perk on Friday at noon. Yes, good. Okay. And then over here, Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Free content all the time, a lot of it. And that's it. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.